In the near future, sinkholes begin appearing all over the world, triggering explosions that throw society into a state of utter panic. Massive creatures, later known as reapers, emerge from these sinkholes and relentlessly hunt humans. These monsters are impervious to bullets, rendering even the military powerless to protect society. Eventually, reports come in from people living in high-altitude areas revealing that the reapers freeze at elevations above 8,000 feet. This discovery prompts survivors to move to mountainous regions in search of safety and a chance to rebuild their lives. 3 years later, in Colorado, a young man named Hunter resides in a small community nestled in the Rocky Mountains. This settlement, known as the Lost Gulch Refuge, is home to 193 survivors. One day, driven by curiosity, Hunter decides to venture beyond the 8,000-foot safety line to explore what lies on the other side. His journey is short-lived as he quickly encounters a reaper. Terrified, Hunter races back to safety, narrowly escaping the creature's grasp by crossing the line just in time. Upon his return, Hunter is met with anger and concern from his father. Will scolds him for his reckless actions, reminding him of the deadly monsters and the added risk posed by Hunter's lung condition. Hunter defends himself, explaining that he only wanted to search for more survivors. Will, however, emphasizes that he cannot bear to lose his son, especially after losing his wife. Later, Will discusses the incident with Katie while they're out hunting. Katie sympathizes with Will's worries, but also points out that Hunter is the only child in their community and naturally craves companionship. Will admits that he believes Hunter's true motivation is to revisit the last place he saw his mother. Meanwhile, Nina, a scientist in the community, is conducting experiments with bullets. She tests them on a piece of reaper hide, but finds that her modifications still fail to cause any damage. That night, Will hears the sound of gunfire coming from Nina's lab. Annoyed, he reflects bitterly on the time his wife joined Nina on a mission that ultimately cost her life. His thoughts are interrupted by the sound of Hunter coughing. Will rushes to his son's room to replace the filter in the machine that helps him breathe. Once Hunter calms down and falls asleep, Will realizes with dismay that it was the last filter in their supply. Staring at a map, he begins contemplating the dangerous journey beyond the safety line to search for more. On Hunter's birthday, Will secures the community's final box of mac and cheese to give his son a special treat. As they cook together, Hunter laments the lack of radio communication between refuges. Will explains that they must conserve electricity and instead rely on flag signals to communicate with other survivors. Hunter finds this disheartening as he believes talking to people is vital. Later that night, Hunter experiences another severe coughing fit, forcing Will to administer an injection to stabilize him. Once Hunter is asleep again, Will approaches Nina and announces his intention to travel to Boulder in the morning to search for replacement filters. He claims to have discovered a safe route, but Nina doubts his plan, pointing out that she knows the area well and it's far from safe. She also reveals that her old lab is in Boulder. Will insists she accompany him, arguing that her knowledge of the Reapers and her survival of the previous mission could prove invaluable. Nina refuses, haunted by memories of the mission that claimed Will's wife's life. Determined, Will mentions a mine that could provide a safer route through the mountains. Nina dismisses the idea, warning that the Reapers could trap them underground. After Will leaves, Nina works on modifying a compass to detect Reapers, but finds herself overcome with guilt and sorrow about the past. The next day, Will asks a neighbor to watch over Hunter before heading to a gun store to arm himself with weapons. Katie shows up, insisting on joining him despite his protests. Eventually, Nina also agrees to come, albeit reluctantly, mocking Katie for her inexperience and calling her a liability. Before leaving, Will promises Hunter he will return, but Hunter reminds him that his mother made the same promise. The trio sets off, with Nina explaining that Reapers emit strong bioelectromagnetic pulses which her modified compass can detect within a half-mile radius. After a long journey, they reach the Elba Fire Road and the 8,000-foot line. With no monsters detected nearby, they cautiously cross into the danger zone. They soon come across a group of abandoned trucks and decide to search them for supplies. Among the finds are flares, ammunition, and a grenade launcher that Katie happens to know how to use. Nina also discovers a Reaper scale and takes a sample for study. However, when Katie tries to hurry her along, tensions flare and an argument breaks out. Nina accuses Katie of trying to get close to Will romantically, while Katie angrily reminds Nina that she blames her for the death of her best friend, Will's wife. The confrontation escalates into a physical fight, forcing Will to intervene and separate the two women. As they continue their trek, the group stumbles upon a herd of wild horses grazing in the forest. This discovery astonishes them, as it suggests the Reapers only target humans for some unknown reason. Eventually, they arrive at the Alta Vista ski area, where they plan to use the chairlift to safely reach the mines. At that moment, Nina's compass indicates a monster is nearby, and they notice something shaking the forest trees. Will quickly climbs to the top of the lift and begins working on activating the backup generators, while the women stay on the ground to provide cover. Katie panics as the monster approaches and fires a few grenades, causing explosions that fail to harm the Reaper. Will finishes connecting the generator and Nina activates the switch before jumping onto a chair, where Will immediately joins her. As the Reaper gets closer, they open fire while Katie begins climbing the tower to reach the chairs. The monster leaps onto the cables, causing the chairs to shake violently, but Will and Nina manage to hold on. Katie waits for the right moment to jump, but misjudges it and misses the chair. Will catches her midair just in time. Nina runs out of bullets just as the monster shakes the cables again, causing all three to fall to the ground. They immediately start running and barely manage to cross back into the 8,000-foot safety zone before the monster can catch them. Exhausted and with nightfall approaching, the trio decides to spend the night in a ski resort. As they share a drink, Nina reflects on the Reaper's behavior, pointing out that when they first appeared they annihilated 95% of the world's population without eating or sleeping. Predators kill to eat, but the Reapers seem to kill humans for sport, leaving other animals untouched. This observation leads her to wonder if the Reapers were deliberately sent to eradicate humanity. After the women fall asleep, Will finds himself lost in thought, recalling his final conversation with his wife, who had trusted Nina's skills to find a way to defeat the Reapers. The next morning the group finally reaches the mine where Will used to work. He explains that both ends of the tunnel are above 8,000 feet, but the lower levels dip below the safety line. This revelation doesn't sit well with Nina and Katie, as the unsealed tunnels could allow the creatures to infiltrate and Nina's compass won't function underground. Despite their reservations, they reluctantly follow Will into the mine. Equipped with construction helmets for light, the trio walks through the tunnels in tense silence for hours. Their progress is halted when they discover the main tunnel is blocked due to a cave-in. Will announces that they'll have to descend to level 7, meaning they'll be walking 1,000 yards below the safety line. As they take the stairs to the lower level, the group is startled by bats, but presses on moving as quickly as possible to avoid danger. Suddenly they hear a noise and switch off their helmet lights, but it's too late. A Reaper is already in the tunnel and has seen them. The group takes off running, with Katie firing grenades in an attempt to slow the creature. Abandoned machinery temporarily impedes the Reaper's advance, but it doesn't stop for long. Will opens fire, but his bullets prove useless. When they spot a hole in the tunnel wall, the trio dives inside. Will shoots at the surrounding rocks, creating enough space for them to squeeze through and hide. The Reaper thrusts its glowing tail into the hole, forcing Will to throw a flare as a distraction. The light from the flare reveals an escape route on the opposite side of the chamber. They work quickly to clear a path through the rocks and crawl toward the exit. Will goes last, narrowly dodging the Reaper's tail before following his companions. After crawling for several minutes, Katie emerges into another tunnel only to be confronted by a Reaper. The creature immediately stabs her with its tail, lifting her off the ground. Will tries to reach her, but he's too late and is forced to watch as the monster carries her away. Devastated, Will and Nina press on and soon find a ladder. With the Reaper pursuing them, they climb as fast as they can. They manage to escape the mine through a door that leads to higher ground, reaching a safe altitude just in time. Continuing their journey, Nina and Will don't stop for anything except to pet a goat they encounter along the way. As night falls, they come across an abandoned house and break in to spend the night. Inside they find a stash of mac and cheese, which they cook for dinner. During the meal, Will shares that mac and cheese is Hunter's favorite food. Curious, he asks Nina what she hopes to find in her old lab. She explains that there might be a chemical there capable of finally making bullets effective against the Reapers. Her theory is that the Reaper's scales are electrically charged, so the right bullet could trigger internal combustion. Will is skeptical, dismissing her idea as an unbelievable magic bullet, and laments that his wife lost her life pursuing such a flimsy theory. The next day they take the truck from the house and use it to cross the line as fast as possible, passing through a town that has been completely taken over by animals. Eventually they reach the hospital and begin searching for the filters. Although they hear strange noises, the compass doesn't detect anything unusual. They ascend to the top floor, where they finally find the filters. Just as they are about to leave, a Reaper bursts through a wall, forcing them to dodge its massive claws. As they rush to escape, they collide with scattered furniture and are struck by falling debris every time the Reaper smashes through a wall or window. Suddenly the monster's tail crashes through the wall and ensnares Will. Nina grabs a fire axe and hacks at the tail until the creature releases him. Thinking quickly, Nina opens a gas canister, flooding the corridors with fog in the hope that it will obscure their movements. Inspired, Will waits for the Reaper to get close and shoots a group of oxygen tanks. The resulting explosion hurls the monster out of a window. The creature appears motionless, but they can't be sure whether it is dead or merely unconscious, so they decide to flee. Although Will wants to return to their refuge, immediately Nina persuades him to help her reach the lab so she can finish her bullets. Reluctantly, Will agrees, and they leave in the truck. Moments later, the Reaper regains consciousness. When they arrive at the lab, Nina begins mixing chemicals while Will keeps watch. As he scans the area, he notices a photograph on one of the desks. To his shock, it reveals that Nina once had a family, a subject she never discusses. Fighting back tears, Nina admits that on the day the world ended she had been working and couldn't be with her family. Her guilt is compounded by the fact that her son had a soccer game that day, but she had chosen not to attend. She also confesses her deep shame over the death of Will's wife, blaming herself for the tragedy. Will reassures her that it was nobody's fault. When Nina finally completes her new bullet, she tests it on the Reaper hide, but it fails. Defeated, she tells Will to return to his son while she stays behind to continue experimenting, even if it means dying in the process. Will reluctantly leaves in the truck while Nina resumes her work. However, her next attempts also fail. Distracted by her efforts, she doesn't notice the compass alerting her to a nearby Reaper. At that moment she hears a noise, but is struck by a realization. There is one chemical combination she hasn't yet tried. With renewed determination she quickly mixes her last hope. Meanwhile on the road Will's truck hits a sharp object, causing a tire to pop. The vehicle flips onto its side, leaving Will unconscious for a few moments. He awakens to the sound of an approaching monster. Desperate, he kicks out the truck's window and climbs out, running for his life as the Reaper chases him. The uphill climb is grueling after the crash, and just as he nears the safety line a second Reaper blocks his path. Overwhelmed, Will fires his weapon in vain and prepares for the worst. At that critical moment Nina appears and fires her new bullets at the Reapers. The resulting explosions are strange, filled with smoke and electric charges, but they work. The Reapers are destroyed within seconds even as they attempt to flee. Nina retrieves a piece of one Reaper's body and reveals its mechanical components to Will, proving that the creatures are robots designed to kill humans. When Will asks who created them, Nina theorizes that aliens are behind the attack. Later the duo returns to their refuge where Will is reunited with Hunter. Nina raises a pirate flag, signaling her discovery of a way to fight back. Survivors from neighboring refuges gather to produce large quantities of the special bullets, and Will finally uses the radio to spread their message of hope to other survivors. Nina continues studying the Reaper bodies to learn more, while the armed survivors venture into the forest to eliminate as many Reapers as possible and reclaim the land. One night Will and Nina gaze through a telescope and notice three mysterious lights approaching Earth, signaling that the fight may not yet be over.